Family didn't invite me to Christmas dinner. It's no place for selfish like you, said my brother. I was cultured and silently stopped helping him and his wife. When they found out it. This is no place for selfish people like you. Jake's voice cut through the warmth of my parents' house like a cold blade. I had barely stepped through the door when he threw those words at me. For a second, I thought it was a joke. Maybe some botched attempt at humor. But one look at his face told me otherwise. He meant it. I looked past him to my parents sitting at the dinner table. The dining room was decorated as it had been every Christmas before, the same red tablecloth, the same centerpiece with gold candles that my mother swore were just for decoration. It was familiar, comfortable. Or at least it was supposed to be. But tonight something was different. My mother looked away. My father crossed his arms. No one rushed to correct Jake. No one told him to stop. They agreed with him. I tried to stay calm. What are you talking about? Jake scoffed. Don't play dumb. You only care about yourself. You're not helping Mom and Dad. You don't help anyone. I almost laughed at the irony. Jake, of all people, was accusing me of not helping. The same Jake who had spent the last few years drowning in bad choices, dragging everyone down with him, while I was the one keeping him and his wife, Emily, afloat. His wife. That's what really got me. I hadn't helped Jake for his sake. He was reckless, impulsive, always looking for the next shortcut. But Emily, she had stayed with him longer than she should have. I knew she was exhausted. She had given him an ultimatum: get his act together or she was done. And as always, Jake had needed just a little more time. He had begged me to help. And I had. Because I felt sorry for him. Because I wanted to believe that he could change. But now, standing in my parents' house, being accused of selfishness by the person who owed me everything, I felt something shift. I turned to my parents. Is that so? My father didn't hesitate. Jake helps us. You don't. Unbelievable. The money Jake used to help them? That was my money. Every time their refrigerator was full, every time a bill was paid, it was because I had sent money to Jake. But they didn't know that. And they obviously didn't want to know. Jake grinned like he had just won something. Yeah, you should go. I should have been angry. I should have thrown everything in their faces, told them exactly where their precious support had come from. But what was the point? They had already made up their minds. So I didn't argue. I didn't fight. I just turned and walked out. Christmas Eve. Snow was falling in soft flakes as I got into my car. The world outside looked peaceful, a stark contrast to the mess I had just left behind. I drove home in silence, not even bothering to turn on the radio. I spent Christmas alone that night. Just me and my cat, Luna, sitting in the dim light of the Christmas tree. No messages. No phone calls. Nothing. For years I had given and given. And now that I had nothing left to give, they had no use for me. But if they thought I'd continue to pay for Jake's life after this, they were in for a surprise. The next morning I woke up in a quiet apartment. Only Luna stretched out next to me, her paws kneading my blanket. No Merry Christmas texts. No missed phone calls. Nothing. I wasn't surprised, but it still felt strange. I had spent every Christmas since I could remember with my family. Even when I was busy, even when work piled up, I always made time. And now? It was as if I never existed. I made coffee, sat by the window and watched the world outside go on without me. Kids playing in the snow, neighbors walking their dogs, someone across the street carrying a huge Christmas bag, probably full of presents. A normal Christmas for everyone else. For the first time in years, I had no responsibilities. No fake smiles, no pretending I didn't see the favoritism, no being the family ATM. It was strangely peaceful. Then my phone buzzed. For a second, I thought maybe it was Mom. Maybe she'd realized how unfair this was. Maybe she'd called to set things right. But no. It was Emily. I heard what happened. I'm sorry. You don't deserve this. I stared at the message. She wasn't the type to get involved in Jake's mess. She usually kept quiet, tried to keep the peace. The fact that she reached out meant more than she probably realized. I texted back. Not your fault. Merry Christmas, still. She replied almost immediately. Merry Christmas. And thanks for everything. I mean it. I didn't know what to say, so I just left it at that. The next week went by without a word from Jake or my parents. Then, on January 2nd, my phone rang. It was Jake. I let it ring. A minute later, a text appeared. Where's the money? I grinned. He was predictable. He didn't care about the fight, about Christmas, about family. All he cared about was his next handout. I didn't answer. A few minutes later my doorbell rang. I wasn't surprised to see Jake standing there, looking annoyed. He had this look like he expected me to laugh it off, give him the money, and move on like nothing happened. I opened the door but didn't step aside. What do you want? You know what I want, he said. It's the second. You should send the money. I leaned against the doorframe. Yeah, about that. I'm done. His face twitched. What do you mean you're done? I mean I'm not paying for your life anymore. Figure it out. He let out a short, humorless laugh. You're serious? As serious as I was when you told me to leave on Christmas. His jaw clenched. You know what happens if I don't have the money, don't you? You know Emily Dash. I cut him off. Emily's not my problem. Neither are you. For a second, I thought he was actually going to hit me. His hands clenched into fists, his face flushed. Then, instead, he scoffed and turned away. You'll regret this, he muttered. I doubt it. I closed the door. He knocked a few times, harder each time, but I just grabbed my phone and held it up. I'm calling the cops. That was enough to make him leave. But that was only the beginning. I thought that was the end of it. That Jake would get the hint, figure out his own life for once, and leave me alone. But I should have known better. 3 days later I heard a knock on my door. I wasn't expecting anyone, so I looked through the peephole. My parents. Great. I considered not answering, just letting them stand there until they got tired and left. But I knew they'd just come back, so I sighed and opened the door. My dad was stiff, arms crossed. My mom looked worried, but in that performative way, like she was more worried about keeping up appearances than actually understanding what was happening. Can we come in? My dad asked. I didn't say anything. I just stepped aside. They walked in like they owned the place, my mom sitting on the couch, my dad standing by the door like he was about to start a lecture. I didn't sit down. I leaned against the counter and waited. Jake told us what you did, my dad said. I raised an eyebrow. You mean what I didn't do? My mom sighed. Oliver, he's your brother. He needs help. He always needs help, I said. And for years I was the one who helped him. Do you know why he was able to help you? Because he used my money. They both looked uncomfortable, like they'd just been told something too complicated to process. My dad cleared his throat. That's not the point. Then what is? I asked. My mom leaned forward, clasping her hands. He's younger than you, Oliver. He's always needed more support. And we love him more, my father added. Just like that. Flat. Casually. Like it was a simple fact, not something that should have hurt. I let out a small laugh. At least you finally admit it. My mom waved her hand as if to brush it aside. That's not what we came here to talk about. You need to start sending him money again. I shook my head. Not happening. My father's jaw tightened. Think of the family, Oliver. You don't just walk out on your own blood. That was rich, coming from them. I looked at them both, really looked, and something clicked. They weren't here because they cared about Jake. They were here because they had gotten used to the money he gave them, my money. And now that it was gone, they were panicking. They were just like him. I felt a strange sense of peace as I got up and headed for the door. You should go. My mother's face fell. Oliver Dash. No, seriously. Go. I held the door open. My dad exhaled sharply, grabbed my mom's purse, and muttered, Let's go. My mom hesitated. You're making a mistake, Oliver. No, I said. I'm finally making one. They left. I closed the door, locked it, and sat down, staring at my phone. Part of me expected Jake to text again, maybe some threats, some manipulation, something. But he didn't. And for a while, I thought maybe that was it. But then something completely unexpected happened. Emily called me. Not a text. Not a hesitant, "Hey, hope you're okay" message. A full-blown phone call. I stared at the screen before I answered. Hello? She hesitated. Then, in a voice that sounded both tired and oddly calm, she said, I left him. I blinked. What? Emily sighed on the other end of the line. I left him, Oliver. I packed my bags and I left. I wasn't sure what to say. I had expected things to end badly for Jake, but not so soon. When? Last night. She paused. He doesn't know where I am. He's been calling nonstop, but I'm done. I sat down, still trying to process. What happened? Emily let out a dry laugh. What didn't happen? He went crazy when he realized the money wasn't coming. He panicked, paced around, cursed at everything, at me, at you, at the world. Said it was all your fault, like he had no responsibility in any of it. Sounds about right. Yeah, but then, he said something that made me see things differently. He actually admitted that he didn't know how to live without you covering for him. He said you ruined everything by quitting. I exhaled. Wow. She fell silent for a second. Oliver, do you know how screwed up that is? I gave him years of my life. I forgave him for every stupid mistake, every lie, every broken promise. And in the end, all he cared about was that you wouldn't bail him out anymore. I could hear the emotion in her voice, but she kept it calm. I realized something. She went on. I stayed because I thought I was waiting for him to change. But really, I was just waiting for a sign that it was okay to leave. I hesitated. And me cutting him off was that sign? Yes. I sat back and stared at the ceiling. So what now? She let out a slow breath. Now? I start over. I don't know where I'm going yet, but anywhere is better than where I was. I didn't know what to say, so I just nodded, even though she couldn't see me. Good. She hesitated again. Oliver? Yes? Thanks. I frowned. For what? For everything. For helping, for being the only person who saw what was happening. She paused. For not being like him. That hit harder than I expected. We talked a little more, mostly about logistics, where she was staying, if she needed anything, if Jake had any way of tracking her down. She assured me that she was fine, that she had everything under control. Then, just before we hung up, she said one last thing that took me by surprise. You know, Oliver, if things had been different, I think I would have chosen you. I didn't even have time to answer before the line went dead. I sat there for a long time, staring at my phone. And then, as if the universe had perfect timing, another message popped up. From Jake. You did this. I hope you're happy. I stared at Jake's message for a while, debating whether to reply. You did this. I hope you're happy. There were so many things I could say. I could tell him that I wasn't the one who made Emily leave, he did that all on his own. I could tell him that for once in his life he needed to take responsibility instead of blaming everyone else. But honestly, I didn't care enough to respond. I put my phone down and went to make coffee, trying to shake the strange feeling Emily's last words had left me with. If things were different, I think I would have chosen you. I wasn't even sure what to make of that. Was it just something she said in the moment? Did she mean it? And why did it keep playing in my head? I took a sip of coffee, exhaled, and forced myself to move on. Jake was spiraling. My parents were probably furious. Emily was gone. That was the situation, and nothing was going to change it. Or so I thought. A week went by with nothing but silence. No texts. No visits. No guilt trips. It was almost peaceful. Then, out of nowhere, my dad called. I ignored him. A minute later, my mom called. Then Jake. I ignored them all. Then a message from my mom appeared. Oliver, please pick up. It's about Jake. I frowned. I wasn't about to fall for another manipulation attempt, but something about the way she phrased it felt wrong. I sighed and finally answered when she called again. What? Her voice was shaky. It's Jake. He's not doing well. I almost rolled my eyes. Not my problem. No, Oliver, listen. She took a deep breath. Emily left, the money stopped coming, and then his job fired him. He's not eating, he's not leaving his apartment. He hasn't showered in days. Your dad and I have tried to talk to him, but he just sits there staring at the wall. He's completely shut down. I was silent for a moment. I had expected him to struggle, to fail, to face the consequences of his actions. But this was worse than I could have imagined. What do you want me to do about it? My mother sniffled. You're his brother. I clenched my jaw. So? You have to help. I almost laughed. I have to. Yes, she insisted. He's always needed you, Oliver. He's always looked up to you. I shook my head. No. He's always used me. And the second I stopped letting him, he turned on me. She started to cry. So you're really going to let your brother fall apart? Just like that? I took a slow breath. Mom, if Jake really wants to change, he has to do it. Not me. She sobbed harder. But he's alone. So was I at Christmas. Silence. Then she whispered in the softest voice. We were wrong. I hadn't expected that. I let out a breath. Yes. You were. She sniffled again. Will you at least go see him? Please? I hesitated. Every instinct in me told me to go. He wasn't my responsibility. He never was. But against my better judgment, I found myself saying, fine. Once. But that's it. I hung up before she could say anything else, grabbed my coat, and left. I wasn't prepared for what I was about to walk into. I pulled up to Jake's apartment and just sat there. I wasn't sure why I had agreed to this in the first place. Maybe to prove a point. Maybe to see if he'd really hit rock bottom. I knocked. No answer. I knocked again. Jake, open up. Silence. I tried the door. Unlocked. The smell hit me first: stale air, sweat, and something rotten. Clothes were everywhere, takeout containers stacked on the coffee table, a half-empty whiskey bottle on the floor. The curtains were drawn, the only light coming from the TV playing some random reality show. Jake was on the couch, staring at nothing. He looked terrible. Unshaven, dark circles under his eyes, wearing the same clothes as before. Next to him was a plate of untouched food. I stepped in. Jesus, Jake. Nothing. Not even a blink. I sighed. You're just going to sit here and rot? No answer. I shook my head. Mom thinks I can help you. But I'm not here to hold your hand. If you want to fix this, get up. If not, I'll leave and you'll be on your own. He didn't move for a long time. Then, just as I reached the door, his voice broke. I don't know how. I turned around. He actually looked scared. Lost. I should have walked out. I wanted to. Instead, I exhaled. Fine. One chance. You pay me back every cent. You blow it? I'm gone. He swallowed hard and nodded. I didn't really believe him. But I stayed anyway. Helping Jake was exhausting. At first I thought he'd snap out of it quickly, but it wasn't that easy. He was a mess, barely eating, barely talking, completely useless at figuring out his next steps. It took 3 days just to get him to take a shower, and another 2 to get him to leave his apartment. He wasn't just broke, he was in debt. His credit cards were maxed out, his bills were overdue, and with no job, no savings, and no backup plan, he had nothing. He was falling apart. I helped him put together a resume because, of course, he never bothered to update it, and made him apply for jobs. He hated every second of it. He wasn't used to working for things. He was used to me solving his problems. One night, as I was helping him sort out his finances, I got a call. It was Emily. I hesitated before answering. Hey, she said. How's he doing? I glanced at Jake, who was slumped on the couch, scrolling through job listings like it was torture. Pathetic but alive. She let out a dry laugh. Sounds about right. There was a pause. Then she asked, "Why are you helping him?" It was a good question. One I'd been asking myself since the moment I'd walked into his apartment. I sighed. I don't know. Maybe I just wanted to see if he could really change. Another pause. Then she said quietly, "I don't think he will." I didn't answer right away. "Just be careful," she added. "Jake only cares about himself. Don't let him get you down again." She hung up before I could say anything else. I looked at Jake, still oblivious to the fact that his ex-wife had just warned me about him. For the first time since I'd started helping him, I wondered if I'd made a mistake. Helping Jake was one thing. Trusting him again was another. Every day I saw the same patterns: the laziness, the excuses, the entitlement creeping back in. He applied half-heartedly for jobs, complained when I pushed him, and pretended it was all temporary until someone bailed him out again. It was frustrating. But the weird part? Most of the time, I wasn't even thinking about Jake. I was thinking about Emily. After she called, we started texting more. Nothing deep at first, just random check-ins, little conversations. But it wasn't long before our messages stretched into late nights, before I found myself looking forward to hearing from her. Then, one night, she called me again. "Tell me something funny," she said when I picked up. I grinned. "Funny how?" "Something silly. Something to make me forget that my whole life has fallen apart." I thought for a second. "Jake applied for a job today." She laughed. "That's funny." We talked for an hour after that. About nothing. About everything. And then she asked, "Do you ever think about how things could have been different?" I sat back and stared at the ceiling. "You mean if you had chosen me instead of Jake?" There was a pause. "Yeah," I exhaled. "More than I should." Silence. Then, quietly, she said, "Me too." That was the moment I knew things were changing. And Jake? He had no idea. Not yet. But he would soon. At first I told myself it was nothing. Just talking. Just catching up. But the more Emily and I talked, the more obvious it became this wasn't just two people venting about the same toxic person in their lives. This was something else. She started calling every night. Sometimes we talked for hours, sometimes just a few minutes. It wasn't forced. It wasn't awkward. It just worked. And then one night she asked, "Can I see you?" I hesitated. "Are you sure?" "Yes." I met her in a little cafe, and the second I saw her, I knew. This wasn't just old wounds reopening. This was something real. We talked as if we had been waiting for this moment for years. And maybe we had. After that, things happened quickly. She started coming over more, then staying over, then moving in. It wasn't rushed. It wasn't messy. It was just right. And Jake? When he found out, he went crazy. He showed up at my door one night angry. "You stole her from me." I crossed my arms. "You lost her all by yourself." He clenched his fists. "You're supposed to be my brother." I shrugged. "You're supposed to be a decent husband." He stormed off after that, muttering something about how I had ruined his life. But the truth? He had done it all by himself. Then came the real surprise: our parents stopped defending him. After I cut him off financially, he went to them for help. But the moment he couldn't give them anything in return, They turned their backs on him. I heard from my mother once after that. She called, said she was happy for me and Emily, and then admitted something I never expected. We should have been better to you. It wasn't an apology, not really. But it was close enough. And Jake? He faded into the background. No more calls. No more visits. Just silence. Emily and I had built something real together. And now? She's pregnant. We're starting our own family. Jake always thought I needed him. But in the end, he was the one who lost everything.